Hello, beautiful people. Today we will be kind of talking about breaking down a show, the creation of a show. For me, there's different stages, right? The first stage for me is always the creation of the show itself. And then the second stage is producer mode, which is where you do all the production side stuff. Usually you go into pre-production around this stage. Or you're just preparing things for pre-production. And I'm using film terms because it's just easier, but this is also true for theater stuff, for creation of theater shows. And then finally, depending on what kind of artistry you do, whether you are an actor or a director or a cinematographer, what have you, then it's that mode, right? You go into actor mode or you go into director mode. And depending what kind of artist you are, then, your job is different. Okay, let's go back to artist mode. This can also be called creator mode. So it's the whole aspect is about creating a show. And usually it begins from a tiny little seed. An idea, a concept, or a vision, right? So you have this idea, right? Like you've maybe expressed it to your family or to your friends, to your loved ones, right? Like, oh my God, I have this idea. Wouldn't it be great to do this, right? So you have a concept for a show, but we don't really have much else to go on, right? Then you go into, I have it in the same box, like vision, because for me, the idea usually comes with a vision. But you don't have to. Let's say you have just the idea. So you can sit yourself down and really envision, what is this show going to be? Like, what do I want it to be, right? And this section is really more having to do with your imagination. You're sitting down, you're visualizing, you're sitting down to explore it on paper. Maybe you had a dream and you want to take it from that dream world and kind of center it into kind of reality, right? So then we go. So from that idea, from that concept, you're gonna write out a whole bunch of things, right? This is how I envision it. These are the characters. Sometimes I go through. This for me takes some time. I have to really sit with myself and really ponder. And sometimes you are inspired by different things, right? Let's say, even if you have the idea of a show, then maybe society inspires you, or struggles that are going around in your family or in society, or, the beauty of, a sunset. It really depends on you as an artist. So from there, we're going to start you're going to start having different ideas, and you're going to jot all these ideas down, right? You're going to go through the world, out into the world, really thinking and delving into the idea, the concept, the vision that you want for your show. And from there, we get to story. What is the core story that you want to tell? What are you saying with this, right? And I sometimes fuse those two together. Those are really two different concepts. What do you want to tell? What do you want to say to an audience? And also, what is the story, right? Because the story could be, Frankenstein creates a monster, and then, the monster kind of destroys everything because he didn't get the love, right? So at the core of the story is, you create your own monsters in life, for instance. I don't know. I'm not saying that it is the core story of Frankenstein. I'm just using an example. So from the core story, and as you're developing the story, right? You're trying to figure out where the story is going to go. And so you're going to go into writer mode. So this creator mode can also be called writer mode for some of you. So it depends on whether you are collaborating with others or if you're writing it, right? Yourself. And I have done both. So, It really depends. It's a different process. I'll get into it later. This is just kind of breaking it down. So from story mode, as you kind of know where you want the story to go, you have a general framework, right? Like, okay, this is the beginning. As long as you have a beginning, a middle, and an end, you can then transition into writing your script. And for me, it's a process of both writing it down in a journal, because I use a lot of pens and journals, and also kind of having it in my mind and living with the idea out in the world, and it being in conversation with the world at large, right? And then when you get to the script, you already have like a general gist of where you want the script to go. Then you sit down to write a script, which is for some of us torturous. If not, I don't know what to tell you. You know, it's a process. I love it, and also it's always scary to look at a blank page, to be quite honest. But you sit down and you do it, right? And it is a process. You sit down and you might have a scene, right? You might have a scene, you might have an act, and you go away from it and you come back. And the process of writing is actually really rewarding. I know I say it's like torturous, but it is also, ultimately, when you get to the end, it is a really rewarding process. Because you are engaged and almost, I don't know, you're engaged with the story, and you're trying to see all avenues and all perspectives of it, right? And you're creating characters based on really what you want to say to the audience, but also what is the core of the story. And that's really what we're developing here. So this part is really all about writing the story, writing the script, and then going back and rewriting and kind of sketching out what it is, and then kind of rewriting. And that's the process I went through with an audio play I'm creating right now. It really was a lot of rewrites, because there were components. I was like, okay, as a Latina, I don't want it to be, you know, just, I'm gonna say it, a colonial perspective, because I adapt a lot of classical works, but I didn't want it to be like a colonized version of it. So I needed to like go back and rewrite and do a lot of rewrites and find my way through the adaptation of the script. I also wanted it to be through the female gaze, so that was a lot of the work, and it was originally created through a male gaze, right? So it's a lot of that. And that's the first stage. Continue with me for the second stage.